Faith and Angel have returned to Sunnydale. Willow wakes up. The Unmaker war has come to a resolution, resulting in the beginning of Buffy's resentment. In this chapter, friends reunite and hidden wounds open up. Wounds that would affect the relationship between the Scoobies and Willow in the future. Welcome to TH Stories 80. Now, let's dive into chapter 15 of An Extraordinary Journey. Sunnydale, the summer's home. The moment Faith entered the summer's home, she could sense the tension in the air. She heard footsteps coming down the stairs and looked up, just as Dawn asked, "Buffy, who is?" Dawn stopped mid-sentence when she saw Faith and scowled. Faith winced slightly. She remembered holding both Joyce and Dawn hostage a few days after waking from her coma, right before switching bodies with Buffy. Yep, those were fun times, Faith thought sarcastically. Faith? Dawn frowned. She looked at Buffy, who was just behind the so-called Dark Slayer. Buffy simply shrugged. Faith turned to Dawn, then to a surprised Xander, who had just stepped into the dining room with a young woman Faith didn't recognize. She explained that the Watchers' Council had freed her from prison. Before anyone could respond, Giles spoke up with a grim tone about the destruction of the Council. Those who hadn't heard the news were visibly shocked. Giles then asked everyone to settle down before turning to Faith. She could tell he was uncertain, even though he'd previously said they all needed to stick together. Faith, Giles said, "You must have been driving for quite some time. Perhaps you should rest and then—" "I'm all wired, G-Man," Faith interrupted, shaking her head. She was tired. The drive had been non-stop, with breaks only for gas, but she needed to tell them what she knew. After that, maybe she could finally sleep. Giles nodded. Once they entered the living room, Faith groaned as she sank into the couch. Almost immediately, she noticed something off, or rather, a couple of people missing. "Where's Joyce? How about Willow?" she asked. The question made Buffy and Dawn exchange a somber glance. Others mirrored their expressions, and Faith suddenly felt a knot in her stomach. "What the hell?" Buffy and Dawn explained that Joyce had died some time ago. Faith was stunned. She stammered out her condolences, rubbing the back of her neck, and whispered that she had wanted to apologize for everything that happened before the body switching incident. Then came the second blow. Willow wasn't in Sunnydale anymore. She was in Colorado Springs, in the Air Force. Faith's eyes widened in disbelief. She noticed a flicker of anger on Dawn's face and silently wondered what that was all about. Still, the Air Force. Faith would never have expected Willow to just leave Buffy behind. "Wow," Faith said at last. Dawn turned to Buffy. "We should call Willow," she insisted. "She has to come back for whatever this—" She gestured vaguely. "She just has to." Buffy didn't want Dawn getting involved, especially if Faith was going to reveal something dangerous, but Dawn stood her ground, insisting this concerned her too. Buffy sighed, then gave a reluctant nod. Xander interjected. "We can't just call Willow. Not like that." Everyone looked confused. "She can't leave because she feels like it," Xander explained. "She has to request permission. If she leaves without approval, she could get into serious trouble. Even if she does get permission, the military might insist on sending someone with her." Buffy shook her head firmly. No military types. She didn't want another initiative-style disaster. Military people interfering in things they didn't understand. "Even if Willow understands the supernatural," Buffy added, "her superiors won't." She recalled Giles explaining how Willow had helped an Air Force officer by using magic to stop a mugging, which led to her recruitment. Still, Buffy didn't trust military involvement in supernatural matters. Faith leaned forward. "B, whatever's coming, we might need extra help. If Red can bring the military with her, then maybe—" You have no idea what we went through with the initiative, Buffy cut in. No, I don't, Faith replied flatly. I wasn't here, remember? Buffy sighed and turned to Dawn. Willow's better off where she is. I don't want any military types coming to Sunnydale. And Willow's military now. She turned to Faith, arms crossed. So, what happened? Faith recounted how a watcher picked her up from prison, claiming neither Giles nor Buffy knew about her release. She spoke of the ambush at the safe house, the watcher's deaths, and the cultists' cryptic words that still sent a chill up down her spine. The room was silent as everyone listened. Giles shook his head and told them about the strange phone calls he'd received, calls that ended with the sounds of explosions. He had tried reaching out to other watchers, including Quentin Travers and several allies, but had no success. If this Unmaker is behind the Council's destruction, Giles trailed off, disbelief in his voice. That would explain why I haven't heard back from anyone. Tara then spoke up, mentioning a nightmare she'd had, one filled with images of dead girls. Buffy turned to her surprised. Faith speculated that there were potential slayers. Giles nodded. Then not only are watchers being killed, but so are the potentials. We still don't know what's going on, Xander said. We do know that watchers and potentials are being targeted, Buffy countered. Tara turned to Anya. An, you've been alive for over 1,000 years. Have you ever heard of the Unmaker? Anya shook her head. Faith blinked. Hold up, you're 1,000 years old? Anya nodded. Faith gave an impressed whistle. But if even Anya hadn't heard of the Unmaker, that was troubling. They were working with dangerously limited information. For now, all they could do was wait for Angel and his team to arrive. In the meantime, the Scoobies and Faith would begin researching. At least they now had a name, the Unmaker. Late the next morning, as breakfast was being made in the kitchen, rapid knocks sounded at the front door. Faith, asleep on the couch, stirred. Dawn rushed from the kitchen to answer. She opened the door, then stepped back as a figure in a black overcoat, his body literally smoking, rushed inside, followed by several others. Faith scrambled off the couch and stood as the figure removed his coat. Angel, she whispered. He looked surprised to see Faith, but gave her a short nod before turning to Fred, Gunn, and the others. Buffy and the rest hurried into the foyer. Buffy exhaled. Angel. Once the door was closed, Angel introduced everyone, including a woman named Alicia. He explained that she hadn't received any new visions from the powers, at least not yet. After some coffee and a light breakfast, the group gathered in the living room. Alicia described the visions she had received before arriving at the Hyperion Hotel. Then, just after 11:15 a.m., both Alicia and Tara suddenly tensed. Fear gripped them. Everyone noticed their reactions, but before they could ask anything, Tara rushed to the television and turned it on. News outlets were already reporting the destruction of the Wolfram and Hart building in Los Angeles and its branches around the world. Everyone crowded around Tara as a female anchor described the devastation. Giles and Angel were stunned. They knew Wolfram and Hart weren't just a law firm. The others looked confused, watching Alicia and Tara with growing concern. Giles explained the truth. Wolfram and Hart had been a powerhouse of a law firm, connected to demonic forces. If something had wiped them out, then they were dealing with an enemy far more dangerous than even the senior partners. You think this Unmaker guy is responsible? Buffy asked. Both Alicia and Tara nodded. Then the phone rang. Dawn, heart racing, picked it up. On the other end was the head of the Devon Coven, asking for Giles. Dawn handed him the receiver, but caught fragments of the conversation. Potentials, killings, magic, safety. Giles told the Coven to direct all surviving potentials, watchers, and witches to Sunnydale. There was safety in numbers. Over the next few days, new arrivals trickled in. Potentials, surviving watchers, and witches. The first group was led by a potential named Kennedy, headstrong and not keen on being ordered around by two slayers. Still, she took a liking to Tara almost immediately. The next week and a half would mark the beginning of the 2-week-long Unmaker War. It would see the near annihilation of the remaining Watchers, the deaths of countless witches on the Scooby side, the loss of many potential slayers, and the deep psychological scarring of both slayers and their allies. And through it all, Willow, still in Colorado Springs, remained unaware of the chaos and deaths unfolding in Sunnydale and around the world even after she woke up. Stargate Command. The infirmary was quiet. The soft hum of machines filled the space with a mechanical lullaby. The lights were slightly dimmed, bathing the room in a pale blue hue. Monitors blinked steadily beside Willow's bed, her heart rate, oxygen levels, and vitals all stable but delicate. A nurse sat at her station nearby, flipping through a patient chart and sipping lukewarm coffee. Willow still hadn't moved. No change, no sign of waking. Not even when O'Neill, Daniel, and Teal came by to visit with Major Carter. There was only the faint, rhythmic rise and fall of her chest, which was better than nothing. And then, a twitch. First, her fingers moved, barely a flutter. Then a soft groan. The nurse noticed immediately, setting down the chart and hurrying to Willow's bed. Willow's head was tilted slightly on the pillow, her brow creased, faintly, like something was bothering her in a dream. The nurse rushed to the nearby wall phone and contacted Dr. Fraser. In the meantime, Willow's lips parted. A sharp inhale rattled through her throat, dry and faint. Her eyelids fluttered, lashes were trembling. The nurse turned toward the double doors just as they swung open. Dr. Fraser rushed in. The nurse nodded and said, "She's waking." Fraser grabbed the gloves offered to her, pulled them on, and asked for Willow's vitals. "Stable, slight uptick in blood pressure and pulse," the nurse reported, reading the machine data. Fraser approached the bed and gently placed her hand on Willow's wrist. "Willow, it's Dr. Fraser. You're safe. You're in the SGC infirmary." Willow's eyes opened, slowly, unfocused. She blinked against the light, her pupils struggling to adjust. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She winced slightly. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Water," Janet said gently, motioning for the nurse, who returned with a small straw cup. Janet lifted Willow's head slightly, letting her sip. It took a few tries, but Willow managed to swallow. Her gaze began to clear. What happened?" she rasped, her voice cracked and hoarse. "You flatlined," Janet said calmly, "multiple times. We got you back. You've been unconscious for a couple of days." Willow blinked again, trying to process it. "The Prometheus, Major." Janet gently placed her hand on Willow's shoulder. "The Prometheus and Major Carter are home. We'll talk about all that later. Right now, you need to rest." "Did I?" Willow started, then coughed weakly. Her chest ached with each breath, still sore from compressions. "Easy," Janet said, gently pressing an oxygen mask to her face for a few moments. "We'll run some basic neurological checks shortly, but you're doing well, considering." Willow's eyelids drooped again. Exhaustion threatened to pull her back under, but not like before. This time it felt natural. She looked up at Fraser. "I didn't mean to scare everyone." Janet gave her a maternal smile. "You terrified us, but you're back. That's what matters." As Willow slipped back into sleep, her vitals stabilized. The monitors continued beeping and humming steadily. Willow's first few days awake were slow and quiet. She was groggy and tired, her chest aching from CPR. Dr. Fraser checked on her multiple times a day, watching her like a hawk. But Willow felt a hollowness she couldn't explain, something that gnawed at her. She felt disconnected. Ever since learning about magic, Willow had always felt an almost imperceptible awareness of it, like background static in her bones. But now, nothing. No tingle, no whisper. Even the world around her felt flatter, like music missing its bass. SG-1 visited every day. Daniel often brought books. Even though Willow couldn't read for long, Teal'c offered peaceful silence. Carter would sit in her wheelchair by the bed, offering updates and careful reassurance, though Willow insisted, repeatedly, that none of this was her fault. O'Neill didn't say much. He just stayed. Sometimes he joked, other times he sat quietly, reading next to her. His presence felt oddly grounding. A few days in, Willow asked Carter, "Could accessing that kind of massive power have numbed me?" Sam didn't answer right away. "We don't understand the full mechanics of that world yet, much less magic itself," she admitted. "But I don't think your, magical senses are gone. Maybe they're hibernating?" Physically, Willow improved quickly. She could walk on her own again by the third week of recovery. Her appetite was returned. Her sleep deepened. But the magical silence persisted. Fraser ran every scan possible. Neurological, metabolic, nothing was abnormal. But there was also nothing that could measure magic at the SGC. At least Willow appeared physically and mentally healthy. Unknown to Willow, outside her apartment complex, police were called to investigate a parked van. A horrible stench like rotting meat was coming from inside. As they approached, hands over their noses and mouths, the older officer told his rookie to head back to the car, call for backup and the coroner. He recognized the smell. He'd been to enough crime scenes to know the stench of decomposing bodies. With a trembling hand, he pulled the side door open and was hit with the full force of the odor. Inside were 6 decomposed bodies, flies swarming the wall vans. He shut the door quickly, struggling to hold back his vomit, then rushed to his patrol car for fresh air. The Unmaker war had ended some time ago. At the Unmaker's defeat, all of his cultists committed suicide. This group had been waiting for Willow to return home so they could kill her. When the Unmaker fell, they took their own lives too. Meanwhile, back at the SGC, Willow began doing light research in her quarters. She wrote notes, observed patterns, and theorized. In one log, she wrote, "It's like reaching for a light switch and realizing the wall's been rebuilt. But I'm not afraid. I'm just curious. Even though I promised not to use magic, I could always feel it in the air. And I don't miss magic now that I can't sense it. I think that's what surprises me most." Her emotions, however, started acting strangely. She'd suddenly feel deeply anxious when Sam entered the room, even though nothing was wrong, or deeply sad when Teal'c gave her a silent nod. She dismissed it at first, probably PTSD, she thought, but it was always other people's emotions, not her own. She said nothing, just kept observing. In the 3rd month of her recovery, Willow started helping with base logistics and communications. Nothing classified, but something to keep her engaged. One afternoon, a technician passed her in the hallway. He smiled, friendly, but Willow suddenly felt a sharp burst of panic that wasn't hers. She stopped, leaned against the wall, and struggled to breathe. The moment passed after a minute or so. But it happened again, and again, in the mess hall, in the elevator, around Daniel, around Carter. Willow began recording each incident, noting the time, location, and who she was near. Empathy, she whispered to herself one night. It can't be magical empathy, or else I would feel magic. Is it something else? Caused by accessing that massive amount of alien power? Or is it something entirely different? Another day, when a junior airman passed by, someone grieving a recent family loss, Willow started tearing up out of nowhere. It was strange. By the fourth month, she was physically fine. She passed all her neurological and cardiovascular tests. Dr. Fraser finally said it. You're clear, Willow, for duty, as long as you keep checking in. But Willow didn't rush to grab her gear. That night, she sat in the mess hall, staring at her reflection in the glass of water between her hands. She felt calm, strong. Willow still couldn't feel magic. She didn't know why or if she would again. For now, she was okay with that. A couple of weeks later, Willow's apartment. Having just gotten back from a mission on the planet Langara, where SG-1 helped Jonas save the country of Kelowna, Willow was already ready for bed when she heard someone knocking on her door. Who could that be at this hour? Willow wondered. She strode toward the door, but just before reaching for the knob, she felt a swell of anger. She was still getting used to this new empathic ability, feeling other people's emotions, and it made her pause. Closing her eyes, she breathed in and out for several seconds before steeling herself. Then she put on a gentle smile and slowly opened the door. Standing there was a very familiar blonde girl, also wearing a small smile. A girl Willow had spoken to a few times over the past few days, but there had been something in her voice Willow couldn't quite place. Now here she was, smiling, but with anger radiating off her. Oh my God, Buffy! Willow exclaimed. She immediately hugged her best friend. The anger spiked for an instant before leveling off as Buffy returned the hug, her arms tightening around Willow as if she didn't intend to let go. Did something happen? Willow wondered. She had spoken to Xander recently, but he'd been cagey about how he was doing. Willow hadn't pushed. She hoped her friends would tell her if something major was wrong when they were ready. Now, here was Buffy on a surprise trip, and the Slayer seemed angry for some reason. Hi, Willow, Buffy said gently as she slowly pulled back, her hand still resting on Willow's shoulders. Something was definitely off. Buffy was angry, yet calm and smiling. The smile even reached her eyes. Willow was worried, and she was certain it showed. What's wrong, Buffy? Are you okay? What happened? She asked, stepping aside so Buffy could come in. Willow closed the door as Buffy looked around, then turned to face her. I know it's late, and I know this is a surprise and all, Buffy started while Willow led her to the couch. Buffy sat, and Willow took a seat beside her. Want something to drink? Willow offered. Buffy shook her head, then leaned back with a sigh. I just wanted to leave Sunnydale for a few days. I plan to travel a bit and, well, next thing I know, I'm in Colorado Springs. Hope it's okay if I stay until tomorrow morning? I was going to get a motel. Hell no, you're staying here. Willow insisted. She still felt something off about Buffy, but pushed it aside. Buffy was her best friend. Buffy insisted on taking the couch, practically demanded it, and Willow laughed before agreeing. Hope I'm not interrupting your routine. You have work tomorrow, right? Buffy asked. Something to do with space? Willow felt another burst of anger from Buffy, though her face remained calm, even smiling. It unsettled Willow, but she tried to shrug it off. Deep space radar telemetry. We deal with satellites, meteors, stuff like that. I just got back from a research trip to Hawaii, looking at an asteroid near Jupiter. It was a lie, of course. She had been off-world. Buffy joked, "Hope the asteroid's not coming this way." Willow chuckled, shaking her head. "It's going to hit Jupiter instead." They giggled for a few seconds, then silence stretched between them until Buffy finally spoke. "There was another big bad, Will." Buffy's tone was sad. She leaned forward on the couch. "This time it was horrible." Willow wondered why she hadn't heard. Why hadn't anyone told her? She checked her phone weeks after waking up and found no missed calls or urgent messages. A wave of anger and sorrow rolled off Buffy, so heavy Willow had to focus to keep from sobbing. She inhaled and exhaled a few times, looking as if she were giving Buffy space, when in reality she was trying to regain her composure. Then she asked, "What do you mean?" Buffy shook her head. "He called himself the Unmaker. He killed Watchers." She turned to Willow. "He destroyed the Watchers Council." "What?" Willow whispered, stunned. She shook her head frantically. "Giles, what about Giles?" "He's still grappling with there being less than a fifth of Watchers left," Buffy said. "A lot of potential slayers, girls who might one day be called, were either killed or captured for a ritual. In Sunnydale. In the Hellmouth." "Buffy." Willow shook her head. "Why didn't you call me?" Buffy shook her head. Another wave of anger swept through Willow. Buffy spoke about the initiative, about the cyborg demon hybrid Adam. If Willow had returned, she might have had to tell her superiors the real reason she was needed in Sunnydale. Buffy hadn't wanted the military involved again, not after the initiative fiasco. Willow understood, sort of. Still, maybe the SGC could have helped, but that would have meant revealing aliens and alien tech. Buffy continued, explaining how the potentials were taken to Sunnydale for a ritual meant to literally unmake the Slayer line. Then he would have sacrificed Faith and me to recreate it. A pure Slayer line under his control. Buffy's voice dropped. "It was bad, Will. Witches dead, Watchers dead, potentials dead, and not just in Sunnydale, all over the world. It was a coordinated global attack." "Oh, Buffy." Willow shook her head, disbelief written all over her face. Could she have helped? She'd been out of commission for months, unable to use magic. So what could she really have done? "We lost Anya and Spike. And we won. We defeated the Unmaker using a lot of ancient magic. But after he saw there was no way to fight back," Buffy whispered, "he killed himself. And when he did, all his cultists in Sunnydale and around the world killed themselves too." Willow couldn't imagine what Buffy must be feeling. Now she understood the anger and sorrow. Buffy felt helpless. "How's Xander? I know he and Anya had something," Willow whispered. "He's okay. He's going to be okay," Buffy replied, calming slightly. "Everyone's still in mourning, but the city's safe for another day." "I'm so sorry, Buffy," Willow said. It was all she could think of. "It's all my fault, Willow," Buffy said quietly. "Hey, no, it's not your fault. Everyone knew what they were getting into. You didn't do anything wrong." Willow pulled her in for a hug. "I'm sorry to be such a downer," Buffy said as she slowly pulled away, wiping tears from her eyes. She looked around, taking in the apartment. "Wow, Will, nice place you've got." Willow shrugged. "Want a drink? Soda? Beer? If you're hungry, I can order pizza." "I'm not really hungry, but I'll have a soda." "Since when do you drink beer?" "I have to blame my commanding officer for that. Sometimes my work friends and I hang out at his place for team nights, and he got me hooked on this one brand," Willow said with a grin. As Willow stepped into the kitchen, Buffy said, "I'm sorry about how Dawn's been with you." She's been angry ever since you left Sunnydale. Buffy looked around. But I'm glad you've made a nice life for yourself here. No vampires, demons, or monsters. I do miss patrolling with you, but I like it here. My job's important to me. Willow smiled as she grabbed a soda. I'm happy for you, Will, Buffy said as Willow handed her the can. The smile reached her eyes, but Willow still felt the simmering anger beneath. She wondered if Buffy was simply still processing all the deaths. I've got a few days of leave, Willow said. We could see Colorado Springs. Why don't you stay a few extra days? Buffy chuckled, took a sip, then said, I gave myself until tomorrow morning. Don't want to stay in one place too long. Willow nodded. If you're leaving tomorrow morning, we're definitely getting breakfast before you go. Buffy laughed and nodded. Deal. Later that night, as Willow slept, Buffy lay awake on the couch. It was true. She needed to get away from Sunnydale for a while. The Unmaker war had been intense. So much death in so little time. That monster had nearly killed her and Faith, had nearly drained their magic before Tara bound most of his powers. Buffy closed her eyes. She could still see the warehouse filled with the corpses of potentials, their magic stolen to open the seal of Dan Zalthar and the Hellmouth. So many dead. The living room was cool. Buffy wrapped the blanket around herself and got up to look around. On the mantel were photos of Willow with the Scoobies, graduation shots, pictures from Sunnydale High's old library. Happier, simpler times. Next to them were pictures of people Buffy didn't recognize. Willow smiling with an older man and a younger, dark-haired man in glasses. Another showed Willow with a blonde woman and a large, dark-skinned man standing protectively over them. Some photos were in restaurants, other at a campsite with tents and a small fire. Buffy wanted to smile. Instead, seeing these pictures made her angry. They all suffered so much. Xander, Giles, everyone who fought in the war. And Willow was here, happy, unburdened by memories of dead potentials, witches, watchers. Willow got to have a normal life. Buffy looked away, her heart aching. It was more than anger. It was resentment. Yes, Buffy did not want her to come back to Sunnydale in case the military accompanied her. But Willow was the one who left Sunnydale in the first place. If she didn't, then Willow would have been battling the Unmaker alongside them. But Willow had left, and they remained behind to pick up the pieces. Buffy trudged back to the couch, trying to keep her anger from showing. Willow was her best friend. Buffy missed her. And Buffy was angry with her. And Buffy resented her. Leaning back on the couch, Buffy closed her eyes and tried to sleep. The next morning, the cafe smelled of coffee, bagels, bread, bacon, and butter. Buffy dug into her breakfast of eggs, bacon, tater tots, and toast. So, how do you like your job? It's really fun. I'm excited about it, Willow replied, buttering her toast. Buffy raised an eyebrow. Deep space telemetry is fun? Yeah, it really is. I'm happy with what I'm doing, Willow said, chuckling. Buffy nodded. Willow still felt that undercurrent of anger, but Buffy's face remained pleasant. Willow wanted to ask, why are you angry with me? But how could she say that? Hey Buffy, I can sense you're angry with me, so what's going on? Buffy would have even more questions. And Willow still wasn't sure why she had this empathic gift. Congratulations, we're all really proud of you. You went out there and made something of yourself. Even if it's with the military. Are you still practicing magic? Buffy asked. No, not anymore, Willow said. She thought back to how she'd ended up at the SGC and to the fact she still couldn't conjure even a ball of light. After what happened in Sunnydale, I thought it'd be better if I didn't. I miss it, but I want a life without magic. Good for you, Willow. As they ate, Willow glanced out the front window and froze. Someone familiar was parking a motorcycle. Oh no, Willow leaned in. Buffy, your middle name's Anne, right? Yeah, why? That's one of my colleagues. They know Buffy Summers is dead, so right now, you're Anne. Buffy chuckled. This will be interesting. Willow leaned back just as Major Samantha Carter walked in. Oh, good morning, Willow. Didn't expect to see you here. Good morning, Major Carter. How are you? I'm fine. Here to meet a friend. She glanced at Buffy. And who's this? Oh, this is my friend, Anne, Willow said. Anne, this is my colleague, Major Samantha Carter. Nice to meet you, Anne, Carter nodded. Likewise, Major, Buffy said. Carter's friend arrived moments later, Pete Shanahan, a police detective. After introductions, they went to get breakfast. Buffy and Willow returned to their own plates. Nearly an hour later, after waving goodbye to Carter and Pete, Willow and Buffy stepped out and walked to Buffy's jeep. You could stay longer, Buff, Willow offered, hands in her pockets. Buffy shrugged. Call it a walkabout in the jeep. It's to clear my head, get ready for the next apocalypse. Willow nodded. Come back and visit anytime. You too, Will, Buffy said, climbing in. We miss you. Visit when you can. Willow chuckled and nodded. Buffy smiled, started the engine, and waved before driving off. Willow watched the jeep until it turned toward the city limits. Then she headed back, passing the cafe where Carter and Pete laughed over coffee. Something about Pete made Willow uneasy. She couldn't say what. Pushing it aside, Willow continued home. Meanwhile, Buffy drove on, then pulled the flip phone from the console. She hit a number and pressed call. Xander's voice came over the speaker with Dawn's in the background. She's lying about something, Buffy said. Xander sounded uneasy. Buff, she's our best friend. This feels wrong. I know her, Xand. I know when she's hiding something, when she's lying. And after everything we've been through, Dawn added, closer to the speakerphone on the other end. We need to know everything. Buffy's jaw tightened. Do it. Leave the military databases out for now. She said she was in Hawaii. Start there. Got it, Dawn said. The line went dead. Buffy took the turn that would eventually lead her back to California and to Sunnydale.